Welcome to Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield. This episode is sponsored by Mayfield Counseling Centers, helping you find clarity, hope, and purpose. Call us at 719-452-4803. Here's your host, Trevor Sherry.
Welcome back to the conversation. If you read the title of this podcast, you're probably already super excited. I hope you're in a cool space because things are going to get a little bit warm in here just with the conversation topic. If you do have little kids that you want to protect their ears from conversations about intimacy, now would be a good time. We are going to be talking about sex, which is going to be a blast. We had a great time with David Galvan of Life Network and Education for a Lifetime last time, and he is back in the studio with us. David, would you just quickly remind us what your role is?
Yeah, I'm the Director of Education for a Lifetime, a Department of Prevention at Life Network. And so we get the opportunity to speak to students on a regular basis about making healthy choices around sexual activity and around relationships. And so we do that over the course of 5 days in public, independent, or charter schools around here. And so we have that great opportunity.
Awesome. I just have to say, David, I'm really proud of Trevor for holding back the desire and the urge to sing.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
There it goes. I saw the cue coming.
He almost did it. Almost made it through.
Almost did it. We'll see the next time.
We'll see what happens there.
Every time I'm writing this in our podcast catalog, it comes up.
It comes up, yeah.
He caught himself and then no.
But this is such an important conversation for us to have. So let's talk about sex. Let's have this conversation. Last time on Let's Talk About Sex, Baby Part 1, we talked about how this is a super important conversation to have with our kids, and that it's not just the single talk. It is a continuing conversation that we should be having with our kids, and that it can start with other deep and meaningful conversations that lead into sex. We also mentioned, and I want to start with this, that it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
Yep.
And I know that you had some more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I actually think that anytime that you don't know, the research is out there for you. I actually think even in your friend base, that research is out there. Your friends will know. I love the fact that in social media, you can post something and everyone will give you an opinion.
So you're saying ask our friends about sex? Is
that
what you're saying?
Yes. So I'm actually creating game nights around this topic. So dinner parties, I can see it now. And so the reason why I would say that is because, even in regards to things that are changing in our culture, we're not going to always know what our kids are going to come up to next. Like, I don't know what's the next fad. I don't know what's the next cool thing going to happen. Yeah. It just organically happens.
You didn't see Tide Pods coming?
I didn't see Tide Pods coming at all. Who did? I didn't see what that was looking like. I mean, we get these fads that come in and they go and then they become normalized, and there's a lot that goes on with it. So I think, being interested during this time in this season of our culture with our kids is a big deal.
Yeah. So how do we engage with this culture? I mean, it's hard for me, even as somebody who's just in college and I don't have any kids. I'm not totally disconnected with high school, but I'm not in it. I don't know all of the new things like the Calculator Plus app and just the craziness that our kids have access to.
Which I just found out about the Calculator Plus app about a couple days ago from a high school student.
Right.
What?
And that's perfect. That's a perfect segue to the fact that the best way to know any of this is to continue to stay interested in what your student is doing. Don't necessarily automatically knock them for having something on their phone. Asking questions of, what is that? What does that do? How does that work?
Yeah.
Show me, and show some type of interest in that software or whatever that app is and whatever that thing is.
Without freaking out.
Right? And that's like the best poker face that you have to put on. As a parent, you got to say, I'm not thrilled internally. This is the inside out moment. Everything's going off in your brain. And you're like, you just want to charge at them.
Right.
I think you're going to see more benefit and more dividends come out of you saying, hey, what is that? And asking questions versus accusing, and really what you were saying last time, of really being interested in what they're doing. And I think that's going to help your student to be more vulnerable. They're going to be more aware of telling you stuff, and you're going to be able to read your students' facial expressions and realize they know that they're not supposed to be on that, or something's wrong with it.
And that's an awkward conversation. These lead to be awkward situations, but there is such reward in fighting through that awkwardness, of fighting through the beet red, your face is on fire, and just being willing to invest, because it's both ways. I mean, you and the student are going to have the same beet red face and awkward, and it's going to be hard, but eventually I think that awkwardness tapers off, and it becomes a more natural part of our conversation, which is honestly where it should be, because it's such a part of who we are as individuals. Every single person has some sort of sexuality that they have to learn and understand. And if we're not doing that, if we're only doing that in the privacy of the shadows and not able to actually interact with other humans on that, what does that say? I mean, we look at the past few conversations we've had about how we need relationship.
Well, I think it's interesting, just thinking back to my conversation. This is not a knock on my dad or anything, but pornography became a very real part of my struggle when I was in middle school and into high school, and it was that age where you had to go into the bookstore to find it, and that was very embarrassing and and shameful and that kind of stuff. To now the dial-up internet. And
dial-up internet.
Remember the dial? Well, I'm aging myself here a little bit, but 96, 97, 98. And there was not that he didn't want to. I don't think he knew how to. Become educated on that. And I think, I then struggled through high school and through college. Of going, I don't know how to have conversations around this.
Right.
But the reason I bring that up is I think our parents, in some ways, the parents that we're talking to, they're listening to this, probably are going, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It's like we're going from the bookstore to dial-up internet, and now we're going like dial-up internet to like I have more power in this iPhone I'm holding right now, and I can access more sexual content that is not healthy, in a matter of seconds. And how do I have that how do I do that? And it's that engaging the kids on that level.
I even think we as parents think that tension is something that is not healthy.
Right.
When in reality, that tension does not indicate something's wrong. It gives us a opportunity, and it should be calling us to say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to engage my student or my child in a conversation, and tension is okay. It doesn't mean something's wrong, bad, or ugly.
That's a good lesson for life.
Yes.
Right?
You're talking to two existentialists who that's like our core belief about the world.
Tension's
So
And so that tension's great. And so even like, what you're talking about with technology, we have to realize that when we see this iPhone literally just turned 10 years old. 10 years old. And it has got us into an era super fast, expedited the whole process of all this information in our hands. And now we took something that's out in this cloud, this ambiguous thing, and now it's in our hands and we can see it on a regular basis. And so as parents, we've got to have those conversations around some of those things, especially on a cultural level. Some of those things would be, number one, I'd probably say that around the context of sexting. Anything of sending sexually explicit images, having a conversation with your children of what they think is healthy and unhealthy to be sent across technology would be a great conversation.
Well, even some things I've had with parents and even teens is the consequences that could bring too. Right? If your boyfriend's 18 and you're 17 or 16, like there's some pretty significant
laws that are in place,
and things that the 18-year-old could be charged with. Right? And we don't talk about that.
No.
We don't know that. We don't engage that.
And even just as of recently, a few years ago, where a case where there was multiple students that were involved in sharing sexually explicit images of students at their school, actually brought that to the top of the desks of our Senate here in Colorado to have to make different decisions around the laws, because we're still learning about these laws and what to imply, what to enforce and what not to, because this thing's gone so fast and expedited so fast. And so sexting is definitely a conversation I would encourage our parents to have with our students, to see what our students know and don't know and what they think is safe and unsafe.
So real quick with that, let's practical.
Practical.
I know we're gonna get more practical as we do more podcasts around this. So So how would you have a conversation with your kid around sexting?
Well, I would first initiate a conversation of what they think is healthy to do on and not on your device. So what can you share or not share? What should you be sending and not sending via text, Snapchat, Insta stories, your direct messages? And really asking your student, the next question is, what forms of communication do you use? Are they using Snapchat? Are they using Instagram? Do they have a Facebook? And really getting into that world of them. So some of them are using kicks, and that may not be the healthiest thing. And so as a parent, researching those modes of communication. I think the second thing is to really educate your student on what's the moment that they send something on their device, it becomes public. Helping them understand that.
Yes.
Many of the high schools and schools that I've been in, the moment I ask them a question, I say, how many of us in the room have actually seen an image that was not sent to us? And I would say probably close to 70-75% of the students in the classroom will raise their hand. They were not the ones who received it, but they saw someone else's images. So helping your student understand that, hey, this image, as much as you like your boyfriend or girlfriend, may not just be shared with only them.
In the spring of this year, there was a teacher who was talking to his students about how fast news travels, how fast information on the internet can travel. So he posted a tweet, and all it said was news travels fast. Within an hour, it had like 1.9 million retweets. It had been across the world. And so it just showed within an hour, 1.9 million had seen it, had reposted it. And there's more that saw it because that was just the retweets. And so we have a culture where I think we genuinely believe that if I send something, anything, a picture of myself on a ski trip to a friend, we believe that only goes to the friend. And that it doesn't go anywhere else. But that's not true.
That's not accurate at all. No. And actually, the next thing I would tell our students is that the moment you post something, you can't get it back. Something that most of our students don't know, or most of our children don't understand, is that, I could delete it or I could get it back. I mean, this is you
can delete it, but it's still out there.
Right. It is still available, whether you think you've lost it or not. These computer devices, these electronic devices are brilliant. That's why it's a smartphone. I mean, they're brilliant. They hold information in a way that stuff's still sitting out there. And so helping our students understand some of those things. And then I would say, lastly, as a family, coming around the table and saying, hey, what would be our guidelines or our boundaries around electronic devices? What are some of those guidelines? Do we turn them off at 10 or are they off at the dinner table? Do we check them in? There's a lot of resources out there to talk about how to be a smart, or what we call tech-wise family.
Or also, though, why do you have to give your kid a phone at 9 years old?
Right.
Oh my
they don't
gosh!
have to have a smartphone at 9 years old, but people are giving it to them because how we're supposed to.
Right.
So I mean, being okay to have boundaries like that. I mean, we joke that my family, my girls, are growing up in a counselor's home. Right. But there's some truth to that. But like my 9-year-old came home from church the other day and go, so when am I going to get a phone? I'm like, so first of all, why are you asking that question?
Who told you that?
And she said, well, one of her friends, 10 years old at church, got a phone. And I'm like, gosh, not in our family. Our family is going to do it when you start driving, and here's why. And it wasn't just a no because I said so. It was a reasonable answer. But I think parents feel like they have to be pressured into, and our schools don't help. I'm not trying to blame anybody, but the fact that some schools require an iPad or an iPhone or a computer doesn't mean that parents still can't put boundaries around that.
Right. Peer pressure does not end because we left school.
No, right?
Oh, no. And it actually, to some degree, is very difficult as a parent, especially with technology nowadays and the advance of it being in your hands and so readily available, that parents feel very pressured into buying these devices for their kids. And I was actually in a meeting with parents, and one of the parents came up to me afterwards and was like, thank you so much for giving us the permission as parents to not have to get devices for our kids. And I would say that to even the listeners, is that if you're in a situation where you're in tension with that, you're like, man, do I do it? Do I not? It's not a status symbol. Just because your kid has a phone does not mean you're a cool parent.
Right.
And if that's what your parenting style is, then I would ask some other questions and say
other issues that
we would talk about. And nothing wrong in the sense that your kid has a phone, but again, there's a lot more things to talk about, like we did on sexting.
Right. And how many of us survived through high school all the way up until our 20s or further without a phone? I mean,
yes.
I did it. I'm going to date myself here, but I graduated high school in 2011, and I didn't get a phone until like right at 2011.
Yeah.
And I mean, I survived. Right. It was difficult at times, but there was always somebody's phone that I could use, or a payphone or something. We can survive without them.
Yeah. I think as parents, we set the precedence.
Yes, absolutely.
We set the precedent. If we're on that phone 100% of the time, and there was a recent study that I heard that said most of us, I think you were actually mentioning this at a recent discourse, that most of us on average, how many seconds? We'll actually look at each other eye to eye.
30 seconds.
30 seconds of looking eye to eye to one another. And we're losing the value and the understanding of what eye to eye contact does.
Right.
And so, again, it begins with us as parents. We have to take responsibility in the parenting and the guiding and the instructing of our own children.
So if that's some of the steps for how to talk to your kids about sexting, it's not so scary.
No. It's pretty simple. It's because it's just conversation again.
Right.
It's not a lecture. You don't have to know anything really. You just have to be able to ask questions and be a great question asker. I mean, it would lead us even into the next one that could be even more awkward. I think the thing that we have to, on a cultural level, we're like, what do I do with pornography with my kids?
Yeah.
Right.
And yes, I just said that, but like, what do I do? Well, we have to know, some studies show us, number one, that the largest viewing age of pornography right now is 12 to 17. As unfortunate that is, that most sites actually say you have to be 18. The reality, the readiliness available of these images, 12 to 17-year-olds are the largest. Most have seen their first pornographic image by the age of 11. Some studies and research are showing us that's becoming younger. Even on YouTube, I would highly encourage parents to not just put on YouTube for your kids and think that everything's okay because they're watching Minnie Mouse, or they're watching, whatever, Octonauts or whatever that may be, because there are some people out there that'll actually put in a pornographic image or video scene for a minute inside there, or 30 seconds that your kid's seeing along the way. And so we want to be aware of that. So those are some of the, even just the small statistics on there. I mean, people think that pornography may or may not affect someone, but even on a mental health level, they actually studies have shown us that twice as many people who use internet pornography are reported to have severe clinical depression compared to non-users.
Say that one more time.
Twice as many people who use internet pornography are reported to have severe clinical depression as compared to non-users.
And it's because of the dopamine hits. I mean, it's because that we're overactivating our dopamine receptors, and now when that goes away, we're left with this void.
Right.
I mean, it's the addiction ebb and flow. We don't think it's going to be an addiction because I'm not putting a substance in my body or whatever.
Right.
But it's affecting the body maybe in a lesser way, but similar.
And it's even affecting relationships. It's not just even on a mental health level. Right. It's affecting relationships. 56% of divorces involved at least one of the person having an excessive interest in pornographic websites. So now we're seeing, like, it says that pornography, the research shows that pornography increases the marital infidelity rate by more than 300%.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a very significant number when you think about, even just, let's go into their future, like our children's future, and thinking that 1/3 of addicts that are pornography addicts that are viewing pornography, 1/3 of them will lose their jobs because of it. 56% of them suffer major financial loss.
Dang.
So now we're seeing something that, hey, this is a big deal. So let's talk practical. You're like, well, what do I do with this conversation with my kids? Number one, I would say this: don't go and pull up websites and be like, are you watching this? Are you watching this? Are you doing this?
Thanks for that clarification, David.
May not be very good.
I want to make sure that was clear. Number two, ask questions. Ask questions. Ask your student questions of, hey, what are you viewing? Why are you viewing this? Is this something that's... And don't be so interrogating. but ask questions so that you can have understanding.
Yeah.
Because your child's probably asking for some type of attention, understanding, or something. And then again, this behavior is modeled by us as parents. So as parents, if this is something that we're navigating or that we're wrestling with, then we ask that you get the help and the resources that are available to you. There's very good resources out there. One website I'll plug is fightthenewdrug.org. Fightthenewdrug.org is a great website. Has a lot of good steps for parents to get some research under their belt before even having the conversation.
And then, a book that I really like too is Your Brain on Porn. And it's a very practical guide as well to what those, what's going on. So you can have a non-ethereal conversation, but more of a scientific conversation too.
And for the faith community, there's a book, Surfing for God, which was really impactful for me. I also want to say to this that you have resources in counseling as well. So if this is a personal issue for you as a parent, seek some help.
Yep.
The chains of pornography and sexual addiction of any kind is shame. It keeps you so that you will not reach out. And so the best way to model this for your kids, if you're in that situation, is to reach out. But you can also have some of these conversations with a counselor. I mean, it may look like having a session with a therapist where you're processing some of the things that have happened, a family counseling session where you're saying, okay, as a family, we have not done this well, or we haven't done anything about this.
Right.
We need to have these conversations, and we need to do it in a safe way.
Yep. And this goes back to a lot of what we've talked about. You're not going to know it all. You're not going to see it all. You're not going to be able to take it all in, because media is going to change and it's going to continue to morph into something else. Right now we all think, oh, everybody's on Snapchat and everybody's on Instagram, but that may change.
Yeah.
That may change tonight. And
Facebook's
we don't know that.
for old people now.
Facebook's for old people, Snapchat's for these group, and then it changes. And I don't know what that is and how that works, but I do know that the more interest that we can have. Another resource I would give to parents, and then we can carry on. But really, if you don't know the language of your child, or if you don't know the language that your child's using, there may be slang terminology that you're using, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to use that because I want to sound cool," and it may not sound so cool. It may not be what you think it's saying.
A sexual connotation that you're not.
Yes, that you're completely unaware of, and I would highly recommend as a resource for you is Urban Dictionary. Having that app on your phone, so when your kids say something and they don't want to tell you what it is, you can instantaneously put that word into your phone and realize, oh,
Urban Dictionary. You said?
Urban Dictionary,
Super
and it's a
powerful
small little app on your phone, and I think it could be a great resource to you as parents.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have you back several more times just to keep our listeners on their toes. I have so enjoyed this conversation, and I know that for our listeners, we've talked about some things that may pull up some wounds, may pull up something that is not just uncomfortable, but painful. And I want you to know that there are safe places where you can go and you can process through some of that pain. Mayfield Counseling Centers is one of those, and as we've offered before, if you don't want to go with Mayfield Counseling Centers, you can still call us and we will help you find somebody. We want to be a resource to you, and we want to make sure that you are growing as an individual and that identity is being spoken into you. And so don't let the shame or the pain overcome you. Work through that awkwardness, push through it, because it's so worth it. Yeah, and don't allow it to overtake you, that it disarms you from having conversations, or disables you, I should say, from having conversations with your children to help them grow. As most parents, I think we all want better for our children.
Thank you for joining Candid Conversations. If you would like more information, go to mayfieldcounseling.com/Candid Conversations and check out our Facebook page, Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield.